The linen in your hand has already touched 3 patients. The wooden bowl beside you has been used by more. Across the hall, another man begins to cough. Your night has barely started. This is not a modern hospital, and you are not a modern nurse. You are a medieval caregiver, perhaps a religious brother or sister, a servant, or a lay attendant working inside a charitable infirmary. The year is somewhere in the late 14th century. The hospital stands beside a crowded English town, close enough to receive pilgrims, laborers, the elderly, the injured, and anyone too poor to recover at home. Medieval hospitals varied enormously. Some were small shelters. Others had large infirmary halls lined with beds, a chapel in view, kitchens nearby, and staff expected to care for both body and soul. This episode uses a historically plausible composite of one of the larger English institutions. Tonight, imagine one of the larger houses. The stone hall is long, the lime-washed walls are damp, and rows of wooden beds leave only a narrow passage down the center. Your duty is not to diagnose rare diseases or perform complex surgery. It is to keep people warm, fed, washed, bandaged, and alive until morning, using whatever the hospital can spare. The first rule of survival is simple: protect your own strength. If you collapse, the patients lose another pair of hands, and the remaining attendants inherit every task you leave behind. But protecting yourself is difficult when microbial transmission is unknown. Illness is explained through imbalanced humors, corrupted air, diet, environment, spiritual causes, or combinations that make sense within medieval medicine. The danger is invisible. You cannot see contamination moving from linen to fingers, from fingers to bowls, or from bowls to the next patient. You can only see the fever that follows. At the entrance, 2 travelers arrive supporting a third man between them. His clothes are wet, his face is pale, and he cannot stand without help. There is no admission desk and no laboratory. You judge him by what you can observe: breathing, skin color, speech, strength, wounds, urine, and whether he can swallow food or water. Every bed is already occupied. In a crowded emergency, the choices become uncomfortable. Place him on straw near the wall, move a weaker patient, or ask 2 people to share space meant for one. A modern infection control plan would separate symptoms immediately. Here, the categories are practical: who is dying, who can walk, who needs feeding, who is delirious with fever, and who may survive with rest. You choose a pallet near the end of the hall, away from the main fire. It gives him space, but it also gives him cold stone, damp air, and less attention. The next task is water. There is no tap. Every bucket must be carried from a well, cistern, conduit, or courtyard source, and every trip costs time and muscle. Clean water is not an unlimited resource. Some is reserved for drinking, some for cooking, some for washing, and some for preparing remedies. What looks like 1 bucket is really 4 competing needs. You pour a little into a basin and wash the traveler's face. The water clouds immediately. Throw it away, and you may run short before dawn. Reuse it, and you carry dirt to the next bed. Medieval people did wash, and many institutions had rules about cleanliness. But without water on demand, abundant fuel, standardized hygiene procedures, or germ theory, good intentions could not guarantee safe practice. A patient calls from the opposite row. A bandage around his lower leg has soaked through. The wound itself is not shown, but the smell and the stained linen tell you that it is not healing well. You remove the old cloth carefully. The skin around the injury is swollen. A surgeon may visit later, but for now the job is yours. Clean, cover, support, and watch. Wine, vinegar, herbs, honey, grease, or prepared salves might be used depending on place, resources, and local practice. Some could help in limited circumstances. None gives you reliable control over a deep infection. Fresh linen would be safer, but linen is valuable. Hospital cloth must be washed, dried, stored, and replaced. During a crowded night, the clean pile shrinks faster than the dirty pile grows. You reach for another strip and notice a crack across your knuckle. It is small, almost invisible, but your hands will touch wounds, mouths, bedding, waste, and food before sunrise. You wrap the cut with a narrow piece of cloth. It protects the skin for now, but it also reduces your grip while carrying heavy bowls and lifting patients. A woman near the chapel cannot sit up to drink. You slide one arm behind her shoulders and bring the cup to her lips, trying not to spill the hospital's limited water onto the bedding. Feeding is slow. Some patients need broth one spoon at a time. Others cannot keep food down. Every minute spent at one bed leaves another patient waiting. The hospital's care may include bread, ale, broth, eggs, herbs, or meat when funds allow. For many sick poor, regular food and shelter are treatments more powerful than anything available outside. But food also creates another chain of contact. Shared cups, wooden spoons, trenchers, and hands move between kitchen, ward, and bedside throughout the day. Behind you, someone begins vomiting into the straw. You turn the patient's head, move the bowl closer, and call for another attendant who is already occupied at the far end of the hall. The waste must be removed before someone steps in it. Yet the chamber pot beside the next bed also needs emptying, and a feverish patient is trying to climb over the wooden rail. This is the real shape of the danger. Not one dramatic event, but 10 ordinary tasks becoming urgent at the same time. You guide the feverish patient back down. He does not understand where he is. His hands grab your sleeve, then your wrist, then the cloth covering your cracked knuckle. There are no disposable gloves. Your clothing is your barrier, and the same apron may remain with you through hours of washing, feeding, carrying, and cleaning. You can rinse your hands, but water alone does not make every contact safe. You can change your cloth, but only while clean cloth remains. Each protective choice consumes another resource. The hall itself works against you. High windows provide daylight, but at night they offer little ventilation unless shutters are opened, and opening them lets cold air fall directly onto weakened patients. The central hearth or brazier gives warmth, yet smoke irritates eyes and lungs. Move people closer, and the beds crowd together. Move them away, and damp cold takes over. You adjust a blanket over an elderly man. The wool is heavy and rough, but it may prevent dangerous chilling. On another bed, the same warmth traps sweat and discomfort around a feverish body. A caregiver survives by noticing small changes: lips becoming dry, breathing growing shallow, confusion increasing, urine darkening, or a patient who suddenly becomes too quiet. No instrument gives you oxygen level, pulse tracing, temperature, or blood pressure. Your hands, eyes, ears, and experience are the monitoring system. Near midnight, the first traveler begins coughing hard. The patient beside him wakes and turns away, but there is nowhere else to move. You could relocate the coughing man near the doorway, gaining airflow but exposing him to cold. You could keep him warm in the crowded ward and increase contact with everyone nearby. There is no perfect decision. Medieval care is often a contest between visible suffering now and an invisible risk that may appear days later. You move a screen and create a rough separation using hanging cloth. It offers privacy and may block droplets at close range, but it also traps stale air around the bed. The hospital bell marks the hour. Prayer is not separate from care here. The institution exists through religious charity, and spiritual preparation may be considered as important as physical recovery. For the caregiver, this can provide purpose. It can also add responsibility. You are expected to comfort the frightened, support the dying, maintain order, and return immediately to practical work. A patient asks whether the fever is punishment. Another wants confession. A third only wants water. You cannot answer every fear, and you cannot promise that anyone will recover. The clean cloth chest is nearly empty. You count what remains and divide it mentally. One wound dressing, one face cloth, and perhaps enough to replace the bedding beneath the sickest patient. This is triage without a written protocol. The decision is moral, practical, and personal. Whose need is greatest, and which action prevents the most harm? You choose the wound dressing. The soaked bedding stays in place a little longer. The patient lying on it becomes colder and more uncomfortable, but the open injury cannot wait. At the wash area, another attendant scrubs cloth in heated water. Thorough laundering and heat can reduce danger, even if no one understands the mechanism, but fuel, time, weather, and drying space limit what can be done. Wet linen is not clean linen ready for use. It must dry, and in winter or rain that may take longer than the hospital can afford. You carry a bucket toward the ward and feel your back tighten. Fatigue changes how you move. A tired hand spills water, drops a bowl, misses a symptom, or fails to secure a patient safely. By the middle of the night, survival depends as much on pacing as courage. You begin grouping tasks: water for 3 beds, food for 2, waste removed on the return trip. Efficiency reduces walking, but it also means carrying clean and dirty items through the same narrow aisle. The ward offers no separate route for contamination. A rat appears near the storage chest and disappears beneath the boards. Fleas and lice may be harder to see, living in clothing, bedding, hair, and straw. Parasites are not merely disgusting. They worsen itching, damage skin, disturb sleep, and in some circumstances help disease move through crowded human spaces. You inspect the straw beneath one bed and find it damp. Replacing it would improve comfort, but fresh straw must be carried in, and the old material must be removed without spreading dirt across the hall. The patient is lifted by 2 attendants while a third pulls the bedding away. For a few seconds, everyone is strained, off balance, and close together. The new straw smells dry and clean. It is one of the few clear victories of the night, though it does nothing for the cough 3 beds away. Then the water bucket is knocked over. The loss is small by modern standards, but here it means another walk into the cold courtyard and another delay for every waiting patient. You consider using water already standing in a basin. It would save time. It would also mix the needs of the living, the wounded, and the feverish in ways you cannot measure. You make the longer trip. The courtyard air wakes you, but the bucket returns heavier than before. At the well, You notice how close drainage, animals, and human activity can be to the water supply. Medieval communities recognized that foul water and foul air could be dangerous, even without modern microbiology. The problem was turning that practical awareness into reliable protection every hour of every day. Back inside, the coughing traveler is weaker. You raise his upper body with folded cloth to make breathing easier and move the shared cup out of immediate reach. It is a small act of separation, improvised from observation rather than laboratory knowledge. Survival often begins with simple patterns noticed before anyone can explain them. Dawn finally lightens the high windows. The ward is quieter, but quiet does not mean safe. Some patients are sleeping. Some are exhausted. One bed will need to be emptied. You have completed the night without collapsing, but exposure does not end when the shift ends. Fever, stomach illness, skin infection, or respiratory disease may appear later. The cruelest part of the job is that success is uncertain. A patient may recover because of warmth, food, rest, skilled care, chance, or a body strong enough to survive what medicine cannot control. Another may worsen despite every careful choice. Without standardized records, laboratory tests, antibiotics, antisepsis, or a modern trained staff, the line between useful care and accidental harm is painfully thin. Yet these hospitals were not simply places of neglect. They could offer shelter, nutrition, routine, companionship, and sustained attention to people who had nowhere else to go. That is the final paradox. The hospital may protect you from hunger and abandonment while exposing you to the illnesses gathered inside its walls. The door opens again. Morning arrivals are waiting. You have survived one medieval hospital shift, but the next act of care begins with the same hands, the same bowls, and the same invisible risk. So the question is not only whether you could endure the smell, the cold, the labor, and the fear. Could you keep helping when every touch might save one life and endanger another?